What's up, YouTube? We are 2 days away from POE 3.3 Incursion League dropping, and we are excited. We are theory crafting. We're going through the patch notes. We're checking out what's been buffed and what's been nerfed. So we're going to check that out as we take a look at individual skills that have had significant mechanical changes. So let's take a look. The following skills have received significant mechanical changes. Infernal Blow previously placed a debuff for 0.5 seconds on enemies hit by the skill. If the target died while the debuff was active, there's a typo. If the target died while the debuff was active, it exploded, dealing fire damage equal to 10% of its maximum life to nearby enemies. Now places a debuff for 0.8 seconds. Repeated hits refresh the duration of the debuff and add another stack. If the target dies while debuffed, it explodes, dealing 6% of the monster's base maximum life to nearby enemies, plus 66% of base attack damage per debuff. Okay, so the damage used to be flat 10%. Now it's flat 6%. So at first you're looking at it and you're going, oh my goodness, this is a nerf. However, notice it also stacks your percentage of your base attack damage per debuff, and you can stack it multiple times. At 6 stacks of the debuff, the target explodes for 66% of base attack damage per debuff, and the debuffs are consumed. Monsters slain by this explosion will still explode, dealing damage based on its life. All right, so while at first the flat damage is lower, okay, so if you just blow something up because you're going to blow it up, then sure, it's a nerf. If you're hitting something multiple times and applying multiple debuffs with your Infernal Blow, this is actually a buff. Now it requires level 12, now has added damage effectiveness and base damage of 100% at gem level 1, down from 130, up to 123% at gem level 20, down from 160. Okay, so that's easy to read. This is a nerf. Now grants additional melee range as it levels up to +3 at gem level 20. This is a buff. All right, get hype. If you have never played Infernal Blow before, give it a shot, because for the most part, it's been buffed. All right, Rain of Arrows. Previously dealt damage in an area based on weapon damage. It now fires a number of arrows across an area, dealing damage based on weapon damage with each one. Half of these arrows will consume enemies in the area, will target enemies in the area, while the rest will target the area at set ranges from the center at random. Now has added damage effectiveness and base damage of 40% at gem level 1, down from 110%. Up to 50% at gem level 20, down from 129%. All right, so we've yet to see what this actually looks like in action, but just from the numbers wise, this is a nerf, okay? Just from the action of reading the numbers. But again, what does it look like, out in Ray class? We'll have yet to see. Charge Dash, there have been some streamers that I've been watching that have said it's getting nerfed. I think this is another one that we're going to have to wait and see. So let's take a read. Previously, it moved a projection of the attacker in a straight line while channeling, dealing damage along that path based on attack speed and distance traveled only when the skill ceased channeling. Now it moves a projection of the attacker in a direction based on the cursor's position relative to the player, not just in a straight line. Deals pulses of damage along the path every 2 stages while channeling. When channeling ends, it deals 75% of base damage per stage. If the skill has reached its maximum number of stages or maximum distance, it deals 150% more base damage with each pulse. Okay, that's a buff. This is a buff. This is why it's kind of like we need to wait and see it in action. The numbers on this one say it's a buff, but we'll need to see. The projection's path is limited by a set distance from the player as well as the total distance traveled by the projection. Movement speed affects this distance. So, increase your move speed, you're going to go further. Now has an added damage effectiveness and base damage of 75% at gem level 1, down from 90, up to 92.1% at gem level 20, down from 109. This is a nerf, okay? Just across the board, those numbers are a nerf, but is the reason why they had to nerf that because they realized, hey, we're buffing the skill in so many ways. If we don't just want to make it OP-GG, we need to actually tweak the numbers a little bit. So, Charge Dash, it's getting buffed and it's getting nerfed. It's getting changed, right? It's getting changed. There's some changes to it. All right, Incinerate. Previously fired short duration projectiles in front of the caster while channeling, dealing 50% more damage with hits and ailments for each stage. Now deals area of effect damage in a cone in front of the caster while channeling. Think Blight, like think how Blight just goes out in a cone in front of you. Dealing 25% more damage, or think Ground Slam. Ground Slam's the other one that's in a cone. Dealing 25% more damage with hits and ailments for each stage. The angle of the cone increases by up to 300% while channeling. Holy cow, okay? When the channeling ends, a final wave is released which deals 500% more damage with hits and ignites. This final wave always ignites. So if you're building an ignite proliferation character where you're just going to set everything on fire and ignite the whole world, this is a buff, okay? Incinerate, pretty sick. Now increases fire damage by 1% per 1% quality of the gem. Previously increased projectile speed by 2% per 1% quality. This is pretty awesome. You're going to want a 20/20 quality this, like just straight up Incinerate got a buff across the board. All right, Ground Slam. Ground Slam is getting a change. It was one of the very first skills that I ever used when I leveled up in PoE, and it's now changing in a couple of ways. So previously, it dealt damage in a cone in front of the attacker based on the weapon damage. Now it deals damage in a cone in front of the attacker based on the weapon damage, but also deals up to 40% more damage to closer targets at gem level 1, up to 49% at gem level 20. Now has a significantly wider area of effect. This is a buff. Now has an added damage effectiveness and base damage of 100% at gem level 1, up from 90%, up to 123 at gem level 20, up from 120%. Okay, Ground Slam across the board, getting a buff. It's going to hit in a bigger area. It's going to do more damage. It's going to have a shotgunning effect. It's going to do more damage to stuff that's closer to it. Like, this is just a buff across the board to Ground Slam. Cold Snap. We've already covered a little bit in the Cold Snap preview video, but here are the official numbers. Previously dealt cold damage in an area. It now deals cold damage in an area, then creates an area of chilled ground, which deals cold damage over time and expands over its duration to up to twice its original size. This effect lasts 6 seconds. It now deals 24 to 35 cold damage at gem level 1, up from 9 to 13 damage at level 1, that's a buff, up to 534 to 800 cold damage at gem level 20, up from 462 to 693. Again, buffed across the board, Cold Snap. Now has a cooldown of 3 seconds, down from 4, that's a buff, which can be bypassed by expending a Frenzy Charge, previously required a Power Charge. So you can now go Frenzy Charges for Cold Snap. It's interesting. We've yet to see if you can generate enough Frenzy Charges, but we'll get to that in just a minute. Now requires level 16, now requires 18 dexterity at gem level 1, now has an added damage effectiveness of 180%, up from 120, now has 25% chance to grant a frenzy charge when an enemy dies while affected by the skill's cold damage over time. So think about this. If you're running through a pack of enemies and you're applying the damage from Cold Snap, all right, doesn't matter if Cold Snap actually gets the kill or not, right? It's not an on-kill effect. It's just as long as they die while affected, boom, you're going to have a 25% chance to gain a Frenzy Charge. So you run through a pack of monsters, you're getting Frenzy Charges, and you can even avoid the cooldown on the skill entirely. So Cold Snap buffed across the board. Going to be fun to see. Power Siphon. Power Siphon has an added damage effectiveness and base damage of 125% at gem level 1, which is down from 130%, so that's a nerf, up to 150% at gem level 20, down from 160. So it's been nerfed in its numbers, but why has it been nerfed? Now has a mana cost of 7 at gem level 1, down from 13, up to 11 at gem level 20, down from 15, so it costs less, that's a buff. Now has 20% increased critical strike chance per power charge. Now has 10% to critical strike multiplier per power charge. If you stack power charges, holy cow, Power Siphon is for you. Now has a 20% chance to gain a power charge when you hit a rare or unique enemy, and now fires 4 additional projectiles at gem level 1, up to 7 at gem level 20. Now automatically targets enemies in front of you. Each projectile will target a different enemy. Power Siphon, another skill that players are going to be wanting to try out in 3.3 because this is a build enabling skill. Now this is awesome. Double Strike now deals 3 to 5 additional physical damage against bleeding enemies at gem level 1. Up to 113 to 169 additional physical damage against bleeding enemies at gem level 20. Now has an added damage effectiveness and base damage of 93.9% at gem level 20, down from 96.6. So it's a little bit on the buff side and a little bit on the nerf side. It now grants additional melee range as it levels up to 3 plus 3 at gem level 20. So like melee stuff is going to start competing and has already really been competing. Like a lot of the racers throughout the leagues, throughout the last league in bestiary, a lot of the racers were melee racers, whether that was in trade leagues or whether that was in solo self-found, regardless of whether it was hardcore or softcore, like did not matter. So buffs across the board, a little bit of a nerf here and there with the numbers, but mostly buffs. All right, Lacerate. This is another one of those melee skills that just got ridiculously buffed. So if you're thinking about starting out with a melee character, as your league starter, Lacerate's a good skill to consider. Now has added damage effectiveness and base damage of 60% at gem level 1, which is down from 95%, up to 73% at gem level 20. Okay, so it's down. They tweaked the numbers. Why did they tweak the numbers? Because it now gains up to +9 to area of effect radius at gem level 20. Up from 5. Holy cow. Now has 25% chance to cause bleeding on hit. Holy cow. Now deals 25% more damage with hits and ailments against bleeding enemies. Holy cow. No longer has 25% less attack speed. Like, this is a buff. Lacerate is going to be a league starter for a lot of people and for a lot of racers as well. Like, for people who are competing at the top, Lacerate's going to be meta. All right, Arc now has an added damage effectiveness of 90%. Up from 70%. That's just a flat buff. Now deals 7 to 37 lightning damage at gem level 1, up from 2 to 35. That's another buff. Up to 152 to 862 lightning damage at gem level 20, which is another buff. Again, they're adding consistency in lightning, right? If you watched our trap video previously, or if you're about to watch our trap video, you're going to see consistency here. Arc, lightning trap, across the board, lightning is getting the low end of its damage buffed, and it's getting a little bit of its high top end damage a little bit nerfed, but really those numbers on the whole of it, you're going to take those numbers because it means you're going to roll the low end of that a lot less, and the low end is going to hurt a lot less, which is great. Now deals 15% more damage for each remaining chain. Can now split to an extra enemy whenever it chains. These splits cannot then chain. Chains 4 times at level 1, up to 7 times at level 20. All right, so Arc is going to be, there's a lot of players who are already theory crafting and building. I was watching Ziggy D's stream last night. He was building a self-cast Arc lightning specialist for his partner. So Arc is all over the place. It's going to be meta. It's self-casting Arc is going to be all the rage. Okay, elemental hit. Previously added damage of a random element to an attack against a single target. Now adds damage of all 3 elements to attacks, selects 1 at random, and deals no damage of any other type. It tries not to pick the same element twice in a row. If the skill hits an enemy, it also deals damage in a small area around it. If the enemy is suffering from that element's associated ailment, i.e. if it hits an ignited enemy with fire damage, the area component of the attack now gets 80% more radius. Boom! This is a buff. How many of you actually played Elemental Hit? None of you! None of you, okay? Don't lie. Don't leave a comment on a fake troll account and say you played Elemental Hit. Nobody was playing Elemental Hit. Now everybody's going to at least give it a shot. Now deals 10% more damage per elemental ailment on enemies. Now has 30% chance to freeze, shock, and ignite, up from 10%. Buff, which grows as the gem levels up to 49% at gem level 20. Now requires level 12. Now actually shows the correct DPS in the tooltip. Oh, thank you, GGG. I love being able to scroll over the tooltip and actually see, do I do the damage that I think I'm doing? So there you go. What do you think? Elemental Hit, Arc, Lacerate, Double Strike, Power Siphon, Cold Snap, Ground Slam, Incinerate, Charge Dash, Rain of Arrows, Infernal Blow. Yeah, sure, there's some nerfs here and there to, numbers, but by and large, the reality is, rather than nerfing other stuff and bringing other stuff into line, for 303, the consistent theme is, hey, we're buffing everything, go play whatever you want to play, and enjoy the hell out of 303. Leave us a comment below. What are you going to play? What skill are you going to have as your league starter? What skill are you going to have as your OP, this is what I want to spend all my currency on? What's your end game goal this league? What build is going to take you there? Let us know in the comments below. We're only 2 days away. Get hype.